Can I please get the brown sugar milk tea with boba, and let's do that half sweet, please. Alright, hello again. You joined me for another episode of Boba Chats. I don't know why I'm digging myself deeper into this boba hole because I scooted over a little bit. But I don't know why I keep on digging myself into this boba hole, because boba you have to chew, and chewing while talking is not a cute look. But you know what, here we are. I felt like eating boba today, actually. You joined me sitting on the floor. I just love sitting on the floor for some reason. It seems much more intimate, I guess. I'm a mess today. I switched locations again. I think this is gonna be it, you guys. I think this is gonna be it. But today, I wanted to talk about my personal experience growing up as an Asian American in, well, America, the United States, specifically California. Now, before I start, I want to say California is incredibly diverse, generally speaking, overall. And so I can't imagine what it would be like growing up as a minority in states that are less diverse. I'm thinking the Midwest, I'm thinking the South. So overall, I would say my experience probably pales in comparison to those experiences. But I still wanted to talk about this. I have seen two other YouTubers, Asian Americans, obviously, talk about their personal experiences growing up as an Asian American. Both of them grew up in California. One is Dustin Vuong. He is part Vietnamese, part Chinese. And then the other one I've seen is Nina. Oh no, Nina. And she is full Korean American like me. So I just really felt like talking about my own personal experiences growing up. I'm sure there are many other Asian American YouTubers out there who talk and discuss about their own experiences, but I just wanted to get my story out there. I wanted to expand the Asian American presence out in the universe. And I wanted to talk about it because I feel like as media has finally expanded to have more Asian American inclusion, I feel like I just want to talk about it now from my own perspective. So, to give you a little history lesson just about me, this is a Alyssa O history lesson exclusive. I was born in Riverside County. I grew up for the first 5 years of my life in Corona. My parents had a very strong sense of community with other Korean Americans in our surrounding area, and they had a lot of friends, and their friends had kids also who were our age being my siblings and me. And so we would see each other frequently, we would hang out frequently, we would all go over to each other's houses and hang out, have parties, just have a good time. But then when I was about 6 years old, my family and I moved up north to be kind of like in the Santa Barbara County / San Luis Obispo County area. If you don't know anything about that area, which I'm going to call the Central Coast, it is predominantly white, also predominantly Hispanic, and within that general Hispanic population, predominantly Mexican. So I would say about 90% of the population within San Luis Obispo County and Santa Barbara County was either white or Hispanic. I'd say 45%. The other 10% I would designate to every other minority under the sun, be that Asian or Black. I actually pulled statistics from some data website on the internet, and in that area, roughly 5% of the population is Asian and 2% of the population is Black. So that fits in with my roughly 10% minority figure that I just mentioned. When we moved there, there was really no replacement for the Asian and specifically Korean American community that we had down in Riverside. There was a small community of Korean Americans, but it was small and it never fit and felt like home as much as our original community did back in Riverside / Corona. In my school, there were, that I can think of, 2 other full Asians in my grade, and then they had siblings too, but in my particular grade. And those 2 classmates were also Korean American, and then there was one other girl who happened to be my best friend who was half Asian. She's half Chinese. And then that was about it for pretty much all of my elementary school experience. Now, we all know how kids are. Kids are mean. Kids can be bullies. No one was ever outright racist and made racist comments to me. I think it was more along the lines of microaggressions and minor racial comments that I think kids, being that young, just don't know are racist. Also, I think because my white classmates grew up in a white town, they also didn't understand the impact of those comments. So, of the microaggressive comments that people made about me, they would make comments on my eyes being so small. I have a monolid on both my eyes. I was not born with the eyelid fold. Oops, that is seen in white people or Western culture, or basically every other ethnicity besides, I think specifically East Asians. So comments would be made about my eyes. My mom tried to put tape on my eyes to give me that fold. I hated it. And there was one day in elementary school and it was just so fucking annoying that I said no, and I ripped it off and I told my mom, I am not doing this again because it is so annoying. I will live with my eyes, thank you very much. And so we stopped that. But then, you know, stupid language comments like ching chong, blah blah blah, you get it. I don't need to go on. But again, it's not like, at least for me personally, I can't speak for the 2 other Korean Americans who grew up in the same grade as me, what other people said to them. But for me, there was never anything so blatantly malicious, I'll say. It's just kids being kids, which is really no excuse, but kids are kids. They don't know any better, and kids are mean, inherently speaking. So I will give them a pass. Even not knowing and being aware of the huge divide between the predominantly white and Hispanic population and the tiny minority of other minority ethnicities, not being aware of that, I still subconsciously felt out of place. I felt like there's really no one else who looks like me except for 2 other people in my grade. There is very little diversity. I don't really see other people who look like me. And that was always in the back of my mind, even though thoughts like those never really came to the forefront because I think I was too young at the time to understand. The diversity got better when I got to high school, being a much larger school, getting all of the, well, not all of the, many different elementary schools together. And so then I saw a lot more Asian Americans. There is an Asian American club at my high school. I personally didn't join it, but seeing in my classes, especially as I started taking AP classes, and I could start, you know, as I got away from the general population of school and to more specialized classes like AP classes, then I started seeing more Asian classmates with me. But still, growing up, I always had a sense of being out of place. I always felt like on the inside I was not Asian enough to be an Asian, even though that's how I look on the outside. Growing up the way I did, being raised the way I did, I have a connection to my Korean culture and my Korean heritage, but being surrounded, I think, by so much white culture and Hispanic culture, it still felt like as an Asian American, I felt out of place being an Asian American because I was growing up in a space that didn't have that many Asian Americans. Whenever we would take trips, my family and I would take trips down to LA County, to Orange County, being surrounded by that huge Asian community there, especially going to places like Irvine or Koreatown in LA. Even then, I felt out of place because it's like all of these people seem like they know what they're doing. They seem like they belong. They also speak the language. I did not learn Korean. My parents did not teach us Korean. And so I don't even speak the language of my ancestors. And that also made me feel so out of place and so embarrassed because I am literally only one generation removed from Korea. Let me clarify. My parents were born in Korea, and my siblings and I are the first generation to be born in the United States. So that is only one generation removed from being born in Korea, and that we are only the first generation to be Korean Americans. So it stands to reason that, yeah, we could have been taught Korean. A lot of the other Korean Americans I either know, am acquainted with, or I know like out in the world, like YouTubers, for example, they don't know Korean. So what happened here? Yeah, that's a great question. But segueing into language, because my siblings and I didn't learn Korean, we would also feel super disconnected whenever we went to family functions, which wasn't often, which I think also contributes to this identity crisis because we didn't even see our family that often. But then when we did, everyone is speaking Korean, like all of the adults are speaking Korean and we don't understand what they're saying. And so we just felt more connected, or I personally just felt more connected. And this even further contributed to the identity crisis that I had. And I also put in my notes, I have often wondered how my life would be different if we had not moved to what is now my hometown. If we had stayed in Riverside County, if we had been able to grow up with the Korean community or the Korean American community that I had known for the first 5 years of my life. Would I have this identity crisis? Probably not, because I'd be surrounded by people who looked like me, who spoke the language, and I would be in an area, just in general, where a lot of other Asians lived. So I don't think so. The town I grew up in is pretty small. It has a population of 100,000, well, maybe a little over 100,000. So it's not tiny, but it's pretty small. I said the vibes were/are not the vibes. Oh, and also people would ask me, what are you? And I think especially Asian Americans get that a lot. People asking, what are you? As if you cannot assume as the asker of that question that we are also Americans too, by birth. So yeah, getting asked, what are you? But then people automatically assuming that I'm Chinese and asking,
are you Chinese?
The number of people who have asked me that in my lifetime, automatically assuming that I'm Chinese because that is the biggest country in Asia, is so annoying. I cannot express to you enough how annoying that has gotten over my lifetime, as if there is no other country in Asia besides China. like hello. And then there would be times when I went abroad because I am a huge lover of travel and I would go abroad. I noticed, and I will say this is specifically in Europe because I have done almost all of my travels in Europe, but then also being asked there and people assuming that I am Chinese. Because again, apparently China is the only country in Asia, right? And then when I would say, oh no, I'm Korean, people would ask me,
oh, are you from North Korea or from South Korea?
Like honey, if I was from North Korea, there is a 99.99% chance that I would not be here sitting with you and talking to you. But you know what? Since you asked me that question, maybe I do wish I was. But my point is, it's just the slightly ignorant comments that people would make that would really grind my gears, and they were the things that I always got and then had to endure. And so I think by the time I reached high school, I had a really like pissy answer and a very sarcastic answer to especially that question. Are you from North Korea or South Korea? Like, bitch, what the fuck do you think? Can you do maybe like 5 seconds of critical thinking? In any case, I have written down, there were underlying feelings of wishing I was just white to fit in, especially in the town I grew up in. Because the white people or the white kids in my school were the ones who were popular. The white kids in my school were the ones who, I don't know where I'm going with that sentence, but they made it seem cool to be white instead of Asian or another minority. Now I want to get into Asian American representation in media and in Hollywood. That was the other thing. I almost never saw Asian American representation in media growing up and in Hollywood growing up. It's getting much better now, and I'm gonna jump ahead in my notes and say that Crazy Rich Asians was monumental for me, but that didn't come out until 2018. And that was the first movie since Joy Luck Club, which came out in like the late 90s, that featured a predominantly Asian cast. And I think an entirely Asian cast. So seeing that movie was such a blessing to me, and also was just so good. Haven't read the book, so I cannot make the comparison. But the way that movie was done and the way it was taken seriously was, I was so appreciative, and I am still so appreciative of that movie. But yeah, there were few Asian Americans in media. And if they were, most of the time, they were just stereotypes. Without trying to work my brain to death to come up with a decent list of examples, I have come up with 3. Nellie Yuki from Gossip Girl, who played the stereotype. Christina Yang from Grey's Anatomy, who was a badass. And London Tipton, or Brenda Song from the Disney Channel, who also defied stereotypes because she played a dumb girl instead of the stereotypical like nerdy smart Asian. But that was pretty much it. And so I never thought, oh, I could do this too. Because you know how when you see people who look like you on screen, it empowers you? Yeah, I never thought that. It was like white people on screen and black people on screen. And then as we made strides, more Hispanic people on screen. But I think Asians were pretty much the last minority to get representation in Hollywood. And Dustin Vlong, in his own personal video about growing up Asian American, he made a great point about Wasians or white Asians, whether that's being half white, 3/4 white, and that being kind of like a filler, like a good enough type of Asian representation. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. Also, one of my last points to to segue into my actual last point, I didn't really grow up watching K-dramas or listening to K-pop. Whether that's because of accessibility, I personally didn't really feel that connected to it. Also, it not really being mainstream at the time, so it was like not cool. But now, as Korean culture especially has become more mainstream and well known, one, across the world, but then two, in the United States, I am really happy to see finally that Korean culture is becoming more well known. It is becoming more appreciated by Western culture. And I don't know why I basically need in my head the acceptance from Western culture of my own Korean culture. Maybe something to unpack. I think regardless, I have always been proud to be Korean American, to be Asian American, but it has made me even prouder to see Korean culture being more seen in Western media, especially K-pop and K-dramas. Like the amount of K-dramas that are, okay, I have to finish filming this on my phone, but I'm almost done. But the amount of K-dramas that are available to watch on Netflix is crazy. But I love to see it, and I love hearing like white people saying they like watching Korean dramas. It's heartwarming, but it's been such a long time coming. I do have a conclusion. Being a minority, especially a full minority, like being 100%, Black, being 100% Asian, being 100% Hispanic, is still tough in the United States. We have made huge, tremendous strides from where we started at the beginning of this country. But considering that racial equality should be the baseline and that should be the standard, but we started from down here and now we're a little bit up here, maybe like somewhere up here. We're not like up here, we're maybe like down here, is great, but still we do have a ways to go. And I have talked with one of my best friends who is half Indian, half Mexican. We have had conversations about having our own kind of identity crises, and what it's like growing up the way we did. But it's such a deeply personal experience growing up as a minority in the United States. And it's still something that needs to be talked about more, which is why I'm here sharing my experiences. That's pretty much all I have to say. What do I hope? I hope this has resonated with at least one person out there watching this, whether you relate on some way to whatever I have said, if this helps you in some way. But I love who I am. I do. I love my heritage and my culture. The way I grew up has made me who I am today. That sounds so fucking cliche. I'm proud to be a Korean American. And I think the more we talk about it and the more stories come out, it will normalize it more, being a minority in the United States, because we're still considered minorities, because it's still like white people. But anyways, I'm done talking. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.